one great pilot study that looked at 13 women who had pelvic pain from various diagnoses. These women received 9 sessions of transvaginal light therapy, and it was phenomenal to see that even 6 months later, the results were very clear that there was a reduction of approximately 60% reduction in pain. And 75% of the women who did note differences, their difference was significant.
Welcome to Balbo. Millions of women are living with vaginismus and vulvodynia, and they think they're alone. I'm Mathilde, and I spent years struggling alone until I finally got the help I needed. In this podcast, I'm bringing you the very best experts to answer every question you have. Let's get into it. Today's guest is Liz Frey, a pelvic health physiotherapist and medical director at Fringe, a company creating innovative light therapy products. I am personally an avid user of light therapy for my face. And so when I came across Fringe's pelvic wand that integrates light therapy and vibration, I was really intrigued and wanted to learn more about the application for pelvic pain. In this conversation, Liz breaks down exactly what light therapy is and how it works, from the different wavelengths of light to how they penetrate tissue and promote healing. Liz has this wonderful ability to bridge clinical expertise with accessible explanations, and I think you'll find this conversation fascinating. So welcome to the podcast, Liz. I'm really glad to be speaking with you today.
Thanks for having me. This is exciting.
I am personally very interested in innovation, and I get so excited when I see new products that come out within the space of women's health and femtech, and of course, specifically anything that may help people experiencing genitopelvic pain conditions like vulvodynia and vaginismus. So when I came across Fringe and your light therapy wand via one of my previous guests, actually, the amazing pelvic floor physiotherapist Julie Sarton, I was so keen to have you on the podcast, and I think there's sadly quite little innovation happening within this space in particular. So I'm just very excited to see products like yours popping up. I was also actually lucky enough to try this product in advance of the conversation, which has been really interesting for me personally as someone who's experienced vulvodynia and vaginismus, and I'm luckily at a place where my symptoms of vulvodynia are more or less no longer there, but I'm still working with hypertonicity in my pelvic floor. So to kick off, would you like to introduce yourself and just tell us a bit about your background?
For sure. Thanks. So I'm Liz. I'm Liz Frey. I'm a pelvic health physiotherapist up in Canada. And I am also the women's health medical director at Fringe. We are a company that does create healing and helping products, essentially. So light therapy is one of our leading products, and we have various light therapy devices. The one that we're speaking about, of course, today is, and I'll hold it up for anyone who's watching, but the Fringe pelvic wand. So it is a light therapy pelvic wand. I just turned it on here. It can be used either externally or internally. So it's delivering light therapy to the pelvis, essentially to help women with all different issues. So I too really enjoy, I'll say, bringing new technology and new innovative products to my clients. And that's where, for me, working with Fringe and working with women's pelvic health products has been amazing. So bridging clinical experience with product and product development.
Yeah, it's a really cool, because you're currently also working clinically, right? So you get to do both, working more commercially with this type of product.
It is really fun. You're right. It's really fun because I can see firsthand, like what type of clients come into my practice and what we're seeing then in the literature, what is supported. And then when I do recommend products to the clients, I see firsthand how much they are helpful for them. So yeah, it's a fun opportunity to do both sort of, I'll say, jobs at the same time.
Yeah, it's a brilliant setup, I'm sure, both for you and for Fringe. It's a helpful combo. Okay, so let's start breaking down what light therapy actually is. So can you explain it in simple terms for someone who's never heard of it before?
For sure. So light therapy is harnessing specific wavelengths of light, and light has all different wavelengths and colors associated with each wavelength. So it's harnessing specific wavelengths of light, namely red, near infrared, and blue light therapy that you will naturally receive through the sun, along with lots of other wavelengths, right? So what we're doing is we're taking specific wavelengths that are considered bioactive or helpful to the body and then applying them in different products so that many individuals who aren't out in the sun as we used to be, like as our ancestors were, can
Mm.
still receive the benefits of light therapy just like we would have been receiving from the sun. So I named three different wavelengths. I said red, near infrared, and blue. And so what I can do is sort of break down the difference between these, right?
Mm.
So as I mentioned, they're different wavelengths. So energy sort of cycles, if you will, like photons of light. So red light is considered in that 630 to 680 wavelength spectrum, whereas near infrared is more up in the 850 wavelength spectrum, right? And then blue light is around the 415 wavelength. And that
Mm.
might not mean much, say to the person that's listening, but the difference here is blue light does not penetrate very deep into our tissues, being only 450 or 415, I should say, nanometers of wavelength. And it's very helpful, therefore, at the surface level with bacteria or fungal, say, infection. You will see a lot of people now using face masks, right? These red light masks. The same thing can be applied in the pelvis with blue light, where the face masks are being used for acne
Mm.
and any sort of skin conditions. And in the pelvis, the blue light can be very helpful for helping with the vaginal microbiome. So reducing bacterial vaginosis, yeast infection, and like a lot of irritation, like bacterial fungal irritations within the pelvis. So that would be what blue light is used for in the wavelength. Red light, as I said, is around that 630 to 680 like nanometers wavelength. And it does penetrate the skin further than, say, blue light. And that's really used at a tissue level for tissue rejuvenation, replenishing in terms of like blood flow, oxygen, nutrients, elasticity with collagen and elastin, but very much so like at a not a great depth, if you will,
Mm.
right? Whereas near infrared light penetrates the skin a little bit deeper, and so I think of that while red and near infrared have overlapping benefits or uses, but the near infrared, like going a little bit deeper, can be really helpful for conditions that have like inflammation, pain, irritation that are more like a deeper issue at hand. So the
Yeah.
red and near infrared light are often really used together so that we have like the target tissue at the surface as well as deeper.
Okay, that's really interesting. And so, just to make sure that I understand it, we have
Mhm.
in the light from the sun, we have different types of radiation,
Yes.
right? Different wavelengths, as you say. And the higher the wavelength, the deeper that penetrates into
Yeah,
our
you
skin.
could you
Or
could say that because the near infrared, which is not visible to the naked eye, does penetrate deeper than the red, which we can see, right? I think the important thing here, which maybe I didn't note so obviously, is that what we've done is we've harnessed these bioactive helpful wavelengths
Mm.
and none other. So if we were receiving light just from the sun, for example, we'd be getting the whole spectrum of light. And some of it's not great for us, which is why we lather ourselves in, like, say, sunscreen or, those kinds of things. So,
Mm.
what we've done is just taken the beneficial wavelengths of light and used them. So, I think that that's important to note. There's no
Yeah.
harmful light wavelengths that are in the devices.
Exactly. So that would be the UV
Yes,
lights, right?
exactly.
And one other thing I wanted to touch on just so we can better understand these different wavelengths, because another thing that is very popular at the moment are these infrared saunas, right?
Mhm.
Which also use then again higher wavelengths of radiation, right?
Yeah,
Because that's what heats the skin, right?
yeah, yes. There is a gentle warming effect even when you're using the wand with
Mm.
the near infrared wavelength, but certainly nothing like the irradiance that we're getting in these saunas. That is a different sort of wavelength spectrum.
Yeah.
So there isn't a, I'll say, a negative side effect or safety issue when you're using the wand as prescribed. What we recommend is using it for 10 minutes, 3 to 5 times a week, because light therapy, what happens really with light therapy is our chromophores, like our cells, absorb the light. And then there's all these cascades of reactions that occur that are beneficial, right? And to be fair, using the light therapy devices, even if you were to use it, I don't know, 7 or 8 times a week, it's not going to be negative. There's not a safety piece here, but there's just not compounding positive effects, right? So,
Mm,
like, less is more in some ways with this, right? What
okay.
happens though is I should probably explain what happens is our chromophores, like in our cells, absorb light, and the cascades of reactions are what is so beneficial for our bodies. So I can speak to a few of those benefits of using light therapy, and then we can connect them to clinical situations, right? So I would say one of the greatest benefits is when our chromophores absorb the light, our mitochondria, which are little cellular sort of powerhouses, they have a cascade of reactions. And one of the byproducts of the reaction is nitric oxide. And nitric oxide is a fantastic vasodilator. So that increases the blood flow to the local tissues receiving the blood. And as we know, blood flow to any tissues is fantastic because it brings oxygen and nutrients to the tissue. And that could be for tissue healing, tissue regeneration, increasing secretions and lubrication if there's a lot of dryness or fragility in the tissues. And it's also helps relax our muscles and our tissues, right, as a vasodilator. So if
Mm,
someone is suffering from hypertonicity, as you had mentioned with vaginismus, vulvodynia, a lot of tension in their tissues, increasing the blood flow and relaxing the muscles is going to be really helpful for the
mm,
tissues. So that would be one benefit, the nitric oxide. Another byproduct in this cascade of reactions at the mitochondrial level is ATP, which is cellular energy. And so cellular energy is, I mean, it's fantastic. I wish my cells everywhere had more energy, right? But that can be specifically used again for tissue healing, tissue regeneration, better function and efficiency within our tissues in general, right?
mm,
So again, someone suffering with increase in pain, increase in tension in their tissues, and so on, more energy to proliferate, relax, and function would be very beneficial. So those are two benefits. Another one with red light therapy is there's an increase in the elastin and collagen production of the tissues. Elastin and collagen is so important to the integrity of our tissues. It's what makes our tissues both, and you'll sort of see with all the red light masks that are really popular right now,
mm,
it helps reduce fine lines and wrinkles. It helps give a nice glow to your tissues and bring blood flow to them. But it also plumps up the tissues so that we're not as, I'll say, droopy or saggy, etc. But from a pelvic perspective, it helps a lot with the elasticity of the tissues. So women that are suffering with pelvic pain, particularly dyspareunia, like with intercourse or what have you, increasing the plumpness and the elasticity of the tissues and the muscles would be very beneficial. So that's another really positive piece. And then related to tissue like tone and pain and sensitivity, light therapy, red light and near infrared light specifically, but they help reduce inflammation in the tissues. So if we can reduce inflammation, increase circulation, then that also helps reduce neuropathic pain. So
mm.
there's, I mean, there's the list can go on, but I'd say that those are some of the really top reasons that someone suffering with pelvic pain in particular would benefit from using light therapy.
That's a really helpful bridge, I think, between the science of light therapy in general and the potential use cases for pelvic pain. So maybe if I can just feed it back to you, the kind of the basics of the science behind it, just so we make
Go
sure
for
that
it.
the listeners are following. So the whole idea ties back to this notion of like sunlight is medicine, right? Because certain wavelengths of light support mitochondrial function, this powerhouse of the cell. And that matters because when cells have enough energy, the body is better able to repair itself and reduce inflammation and generally just be healthy overall. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's a really good summary.
Okay, good. I find it really interesting because I'm one of the people who fell for the red light masks for the face, and I've enjoyed using it so much. So I find it super fascinating.
It's interesting you note that because I think I have a lot of clients in my pelvic practice that ask me about like, is this just a gimmick? Does it really work? And I can
Right.
totally appreciate and understand those questions, right? And I think by describing the science behind what's happening, people can say, oh, wait, like this, it's not a gimmick as long as you're purchasing an actually like a good quality device that has third
Mm.
party testing and all of that. When you think about what's happening at a cellular level, you can really, I'll say, buy into it, or say, hey, wait, this is something I want to try, right? But I do think it's, as you had mentioned, really important to bridge the science with what we're seeing clinically.
Yeah, exactly. And you mentioned some really interesting effects that I think specifically red light and near infrared light can have on issues that might be related to pelvic pain. But one thing I wanted to come back to is the blue light, because you mentioned earlier that it can be antimicrobial or antibacterial, if I understood you correctly. So I would be really interested to hear more about the potential use case for women who may be experiencing like yeast infections that keep coming back, or bacterial vaginosis, which we know can be linked to specifically neuropathic vestibulodynia. So it would be interesting to hear more about
For
that.
sure. So I just put the anyone who's watching, I put the wand on blue light so you can see the difference. I can just go back. This is the blue and then this is the red. So there's a like a mode on the wand that can just toggle back and forth between the two. So your question was just sort of how does it help essentially, right? So the blue light therapy will help increase, like I'll say, good bacteria or lactobacillus, right? Which will combat negative bacteria that may have infiltrated into pelvis.
Mm,
So by using the blue light therapy, what we're doing is we're helping balance our pH, balance our good and bad bacteria, etc., to help with the like support the microbiome. We do recommend using blue light for like antibacterial, antifungal, etc., in individuals that are suffering with infection, but then using the red and near infrared light after, in most cases, for tissue rejuvenation and tissue health. So it's a really nice combination to be able to say, okay, I'm going to use blue light for 5 to 10 minutes, followed by the red light. So you're receiving both of the benefits.
okay, understood. Interesting. And is there any research specifically on the application of light therapy for vulvodynia or other pelvic pain conditions, or is it more that there's been plenty of research on light therapy in general, and then the results of that or the effects of that has been deduced as beneficial for vulvodynia and vaginismus
Yeah, good
type of
question.
cases as
So
well?
there is some great research out there. I'll look or I'll mention one research study. Why I'm mentioning it is because it is using exactly like the Fringe product, LED light therapy transvaginally. So there's
Mm,
tons of research with using laser therapy, not LED light therapy, that really does show the benefits for using light therapy for the pelvis, but using specific LED light chips transvaginally. There's one great study, and it was a pilot study that looked at 13 women who had pelvic pain from various diagnoses, which I think is important to note because a lot of pelvic pain, as you know, people will be searching for a diagnosis and they might have many things, many conditions that are overlapping, right? So it's not only endometriosis or only vulvodynia. Like usually there's, vaginismus, vulvodynia, there could be endo, there could be interstitial cystitis or bladder pain syndrome. Like there might be a number of conditions. So I liked
mm,
this study because it wasn't just one condition, it was women with chronic pelvic pain.
mm.
So these women received 9 sessions of transvaginal like light therapy, and they looked at pain questionnaire, McGill short form pain questionnaire at baseline, 1 week, 3 months, and 6 months, and it was phenomenal to see that even 6 months later, the results were very clear that there was a reduction of approximately 60% reduction in pain as per the pain questionnaire. And those 75% of the women who did note differences, their difference was significant, like that they
Mm,
noted that it was significant. So to me, that was really compelling, great research because it was on a variety of conditions, 9 sessions, and there was a 6-month follow up that showed lasting benefits. So
very
that,
interesting.
yeah, I love that study. And I share that with my clients that are, suffering from pelvic pain and wondering whether or not a purchase of a light therapy product would be beneficial or not. Because I really do try to turn to the research, and my practice is research supported. And it was a fairly simple study with only 9 sessions, and it used a questionnaire, etc. So
Mm.
that was a great piece of research.
What sort of time span was used for those 9 treatments? Do you know?
I'd have to look back. No, I'm not sure offhand, but what it would be doing is looking at the device that was used, what the clinical relevant dose was. I can't cite it offhand.
Yeah, no, that's okay. And in that study, were they also using a combination of blue, red, and near
They
infrared
they
light?
were using near infrared light therapy. What's Yeah, similar to what's available in the wand.
Yeah. And the difference between laser light
Mhm.
therapy and LED light therapy, I assume the price is very different in terms of
Yeah.
delivering that treatment. But what are the differences there? Is there a difference in efficacy or
So laser light therapy has been used for years
Mm,
clinically for pelvic health. And why we're seeing light therapy devices on the market for like consumer based now is that LED light therapy, there's been research to show that it can produce the same results as laser therapy, but you have to use it for a little bit longer, or like the dosage is just different.
mm,
This research that's showing that you can have the same benefits using LED light as laser. This is what's created essentially a market for red light therapy products to be used at home. So the dosage, say for us and our products, looks at the number of light chips that's actually in the device, the fact that it's in contact with the skin, not being used sort of, at maybe 6 inches or a foot or what have you away. So in contact, number of LED light chips, and how much, like the wavelengths and so on that they're emitting for the surface area, like the contact surface area, to come up with a clinical dose. So we recommend using the wand for 10 minutes or up to 10 minutes. I want to just discuss dosage for a second, right?
yeah.
So, because a lot of people, especially people who are suffering with pelvic pain, are hesitant often to do like the full dose. And I completely understand. So what we've done is we've built in a sort of a mode, if you will, where you can use 50% of the light. So you can see that I'm toggling back and forth between full light and 50% of the light. So we designed this to be very manageable, to not have women feel uncomfortable or apprehensive using it, based on the fact that you can reduce the amount of light that's being given. You can reduce the time that you're starting. So women
Mm,
who suffer from quite a bit of pelvic pain, pelvic irritation, I'll often recommend for them to start with 5 minutes at 50% of the
mhm,
light that's being emitted, and then increase either the amount of light that you're receiving by using full mode, or just by increasing a minute every few sessions, so every week, give or take, until
mm.
we build up, and we monitor symptoms. We monitor how your tissues are receiving and adapting to the light. So that's something to note with our device. The other thing is that when you look at the size of the circumference of the device, like say relative to the circumference of my thumb, it's not meant to be intimidating, I guess would be the word, at any point. And you can use it externally. You could use just the tip at the entrance, and then you can insert only to a comfortable level. So there are a lot
Mm.
of different, I'm going to call them options, or ways that you can modulate your protocol or how you're going to be using the device.
This is all super interesting. I wanted to mention the point around the vibration setting as well, because the
Yeah.
wand also has a vibration setting. Could you talk a bit about why you incorporated that as part of the design, what that was for? Is it just for relaxation, pleasure, or does it have a therapeutic effect?
For sure. So we also In addition to the light therapy that's in the pelvic wand, we want to stack therapies to make the wand very versatile. What we did was we actually incorporated 4 different levels of vibration into the wand. So, very, very low level vibration can be very helpful in relaxing, like hypertonic, essentially, muscles. So, reducing tone in muscles, and women find it very soothing, very relaxing. Like that's the feedback that we've received. So you could use there again, there's 4 levels. The first 2 levels are meant to be more for relaxation, reducing pelvic tone, etc. Whereas the higher, and I say higher cautiously because they're not really high level vibration at any point, but the
Hmm.
higher 2 levels can be very helpful for women who are on the opposite end of the spectrum and have hypo or low tone. So these would be women who might be postpartum, where they have a low estrogen, or perimenopausal or menopausal, where we have a reduced level of estrogen, and therefore our muscles might not be responding the way they used to. We see atrophy and irritation. So what we can do is use the higher level of vibration to stimulate essentially the muscles. So when I do strengthening exercises with people, then their brain has sort of some tactile vibrational feedback to say, oh, those muscles. And then they can
Mm.
practice doing strengthening exercises at the higher levels.
Okay, that's very interesting. I'm gonna get to my experience of using the wand a bit
Yeah.
later, but I didn't know about that differentiation between the intention behind the different levels of vibration. That's really interesting and
Well, the neat, the
makes a lot
neat
of sense.
The neat thing here too is you don't have to within your say 10-minute session only stick to one level as well. So often I'll have someone who has hypertonicity and suffers from pelvic pain. They might start with the wand even externally and using low level vibration. Let's pretend for 2 minutes, just for argument's sake. Then they insert the wand, continuing to use the light therapy with low level vibration for another 2 or 3 minutes. And maybe they're doing this with breathing exercises and in opening positions of the pelvis. Like we want to stack this with the pelvic health physio that, many of us already offer. And then maybe we increase the vibration and we're actually working on the ability to contract and relax, right?
Mm.
Depending on what the condition is and why the woman is using the pelvic wand, you can really work at different levels or different modes.
Just out of curiosity, do you offer any instructional videos or something like that on your website? Because we'll get to it maybe a bit later, but there are, as you mentioned, quite a few modes on and variations of the
Yeah.
different modes and combinations of the modes that you can use on this. So it would be quite interesting to have
Some
even
how
more.
to's. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So really good question. We don't have videos, say, with protocols, specific protocols on the website. And that's because we don't offer specific medical advice, right? And we always recommend for women to seek, if they can, pelvic health advice from their medical professional, like practitioners, whether or not it be physio or OT or their OBGYN or family doctor, whoever, because everyone's condition is so unique, right? And so specific. But when people email or DM with more general questions like what would you recommend for someone with pelvic pain or that, I suffer from the following, how would you recommend I start using the device? We always respond fairly quickly and we're always happy to answer people's questions. We just can't offer specific medical advice. That's all.
Okay, got it. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. No, that's useful to know. So, if someone starts using this, it sounds very promising, right? What should their expectations be in terms of timeline? How you
Mhm.
talked a bit about dosage before. How long before people typically notice changes if they do it all?
So some women will see change really rapidly, really quickly. And other women, it does take like a lot longer. So I would say I recommend for my clients, use the device, like use the pelvic wand 3 to 5 times a week for 3 weeks. And then let's check back and see whether or not you feel like there's change. If someone has had pelvic pain ongoing for pretend 20, 30 years, like a long standing chronic pelvic pain, I do feel like that's going to take a lot longer to change. That's not going to be a 1 week and oh my gosh, it's cured. No, I don't think that that's realistic, right? But definitely within 3 weeks of using the device, women often do report seeing some benefit, some change. It might not
Mm.
be a complete cure to their condition. And again, it depends on what the underlying issues are, right? But that's what I usually recommend to see some change.
Okay. Okay, that's good to know. And I would love to transition a bit to more into who this is for or different use cases
Mhm.
within people who might be experiencing symptoms of vulvodynia or vaginismus. And maybe it's helpful to give you an overview of how I've found using this, what I've experienced. And just for context for the listener, I mean, I've started experiencing vulvodynia 5 years ago and then later started developing symptoms of vaginismus as well, I think in response to the vulvar pain that I was experiencing. And I'm luckily at a place now where, again, symptoms of vulvodynia are a lot better, but I'm still working through the hypertonicity of my pelvic floor. So I think for me, the way I've been using it is I first started introducing it more externally with the red light and also the near infrared light, and then starting using the vibration, the lowest vibration setting as well. And then over time, I started incorporating it more into my dilating routine as well. So either using it to complement when I was using my dilators, I would use it maybe towards the end of that. So starting with the very smallest dilators and then progressing to the wand, or sometimes also using it just in place of the dilators. And I think it's helpful maybe for the listeners to, I mean, you showed it on screen earlier and compared it to your hand, but comparing it to my dilator set, which is 5 sizes, I think I would say that it's somewhere in between size 3 and size 4, maybe closer to size 4,
Mhm.
but something like that. So I would say that there was a time not too long ago where I wouldn't have been able, or I think I would have experienced quite a lot of pain if I were to use the wand, because I think it would have been too large for me. But now, when I am at a slightly better place in my journey, I am able to use it comfortably. And so I started using this maybe just under a month ago. So I think it's still fairly early days to assess the impact that it's had. But what I've appreciated most about it is that I find that it's provided quite a nice self-care ritual into my routine. It's quite a relaxing thing to use, I find. And it's funny because, as I mentioned, I'm also a very avid user of my lead mask for the face. I use that religiously every day. So I use these together while I'm lying in bed and I look like a total cyborg. But it's been something I genuinely look forward to because I feel that it sits in a interesting sweet spot between something that is very clinical, like a dilator set, which I've struggled to keep up with in the past because it's just felt scary for one part and then also it just felt quite clinical. So I think it's a really cool product in that sense that it, for me at least, has kind of helped me switch up my routine a bit and provide something slightly different, somewhere in between, like a pure self-care product and like a therapeutic clinical product. And I'm really excited to see any more medium term or long term effects of using it on my tissue health in particular. And I would say I particularly love the vibration settings because I've used some other vibration products in the past and I find that the vibration has been way too strong. I don't like it at all. But this is a very mild, and as you said, I found it to be very relaxing and enabled me to maybe connect better with my own body and drop into my body a bit more than using a normal dilator set, for instance. So I hope that's helpful for listeners to get a sense of one use case, if you will, but it would be interesting to hear other use cases within pelvic pain conditions that you've seen different people who might benefit from this.
For sure. I actually really appreciate hearing your feedback. It really does echo a lot of what I hear in clinic with my clients. And if listeners are looking to hear what other people say or more feedback on our website, there are a ton of verified testimonials of people that comment on their use case and, if they found it beneficial or not or what have you. But what you've said really does echo with my pelvic pain clients. what they sense. And the low level vibration plus the light, the relaxing nature of it is something that a lot of women, I think, appreciate because they usually, if you have had pelvic pain, there's a sense of, kind of like, oh no, something, I don't want anything to enter. Like there's a almost like a tension that builds, an anticipation. But
Mm,
with the gentle vibration being used externally, and then also the gentle warmth, and everyone feels the warmth of the near infrared slightly differently. Some people don't feel like it's warm at all. Other people say, oh no, are you kidding me? It's definitely warm. So everyone is a little bit different, but that gentle warmth plus the vibration, using it and being okay to use it externally before using it internally. Really, women have said that it's been a game changer in terms of feeling more comfortable and feeling more relaxed with having like something entering into the vaginal like canal, essentially. But you asked about some other use cases. And so when we're looking at different clients that I see, I would say the women who are either early postpartum or perimenopausal, menopausal. That's a lot of who I see in my practice, but they definitely really enjoy using the wand and have seen huge benefits. So when we have reduced estrogen, which can be postpartum or with menopause, there is a whole host of challenges with the pelvic floor that can occur. That could be anything from reduced blood flow and tissue fragility or tissue dryness to atrophy and weakness within the pelvic floor. So using the wand, this is quite opposite the use case that we've already discussed, which is more for hypertonicity, but this
mm.
low tone, fragile tissue that is quite atrophied, the wand can be really beneficial there because there's more energy, like cellular energy, more elastin, more collagen to plump up the tissues. There's an increase in blood flow, which brings oxygen and nutrients for tissue repair, tissue health, tissue healing. So if we combine that with actual strengthening exercises and so on for the either postpartum or perimenopausal, menopausal women, the wand can be fantastic. Then if we add the higher levels of vibration, plus the light therapy, then I say we're off to the races with developing strength and integrity to the pelvic floor where there might not be from either birth and birth trauma or with menopause.
Very interesting. And so who is this not for? What are some things that we need to be cautious of? Are there any contraindications?
Yeah, so there are a few. If someone has had cancer, like in the pelvic region, then we don't recommend light therapy over an active or previous cancer site. Having said that, if you've had cancer somewhere else in your body, like totally unrelated to the pelvis, then you can still use the wand for the pelvis. You just don't want to use light therapy over an active cancer site. Okay.
What is the reason for that?
Well, if I had had pelvic cancer, I
Mm,
wouldn't want to be increasing blood flow and increasing energy to those tissues, just in case, essentially as a cautionary, if there were still cancerous cells that remained that maybe were undetected or anything of the sort. I wouldn't really want to supply more energy to
yeah.
a previous cancer site, right? Also, if women are on any type of medication that makes them sensitive to light, then a cautionary approach would be taken. And that's
Mm,
where you might use the wand on like 50% of the light for only 5 minutes and just see how your tissues respond. That could be a strong cautionary. Then also, cautionary is if someone's using a corticosteroid or a cream of some sort that might thin the tissues. So it's not a
mm.
contraindication, but it's, hey, let's proceed with extreme caution because if your tissues are thinner and more fragile, then they might be more sensitive to the light therapy. So those would be let's say one contraindication with cancer and then the two cautionaries. But otherwise, the light therapy really is quite beneficial for most use cases. Yeah.
Okay, super fascinating. Oh, it's been really interesting learning more about the science behind the product. And as I mentioned, I'm really excited to continue using the product and report back over time the effect I see from it. So where can people get a hold of your product? Is it mainly in North America that it's being sold at the moment?
It is. So right now, North America, so US and Canada and Australia actually are the three zones that the product is being shipped to. You can look us up On our website is fringeheals.com. We are on Instagram at fringeheals. And if anyone wants to get in touch, they can definitely DM on Instagram. And usually then I get the DM forwarded to me and then I'm the one that responds, and or send an email. I'm liz@fringeheals.com, or just check out the website and you can ask any questions to hi@fringeheals. So there's tons of different ways to either explore our product and or get in touch. If people have specific questions, we're always happy to answer and help.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for all of this, Liz. It's been such a pleasure talking. But again, I just have to say I'm just very happy to see products like yours coming onto the market, and it's been so interesting learning more about it. So thank you for being here.
Likewise, thanks so much for having me.
If you're curious about the Fringe pelvic wand or want to learn more, you can find all the links and contact details in the show notes. And if you'd like to try it for yourself, I've also partnered with Fringe to offer listeners an exclusive discount. So you can use the code BAUBO10, that's spelled BAUBO 10. Check out to save on your order. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and leave a rating. It really does help more people discover these conversations. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.